the disability parking, and it has the stripes beside it. You're not supposed to park there because if somebody's using a wheelchair or ramp, there's room for them to get out. She took that slide, the line, as the loading zone. And she used to be like, I'm in the loading zone. And I was like, look, you're not a truck. I mean, it's not like it's not a loading zone. But people just, and shit was serious. Hey, everybody, it's Belinda. Today, we have Brandy with Be Out the Box. She's going to talk about ableism. We're going to talk about ableism again. We're going to run it again. We talked about it before, but we're going to talk about it again in more detail. But before I get to that, let me tell you about Brandy. She's an experienced public health practitioner, disability inclusion and accessibility advocate, and the creator of the blog Be Out the Box. Her one word is opportunity, with the mission of changing the narrative surrounding people with disabilities, exposing gaps in community accessibility, and celebrating innovative solutions for creating environments supportive of all abilities. Thank you, Brandy, for being on the show.
Thank you, Belinda. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Now, you know, we talked about ableism before. We just touched the surface of what ableism was, and we were able to give some examples. Today, I want us to dive deeper. You know, I had people ask me, I want to hear more about that. I want to hear more about what I can do different, or just enlighten me. So in this conversation, I want to dig deeper about ableism and what people need to look for to be better, to not, you know, do ableism.
Right. Not to be ableist, I guess.
Not to be ableist, I guess. Right. That's exactly right. So before we get started again, refresh people's memory on what is ableism.
Right. So yeah, thank you. I'm glad you asked that, because I was going to say, I know we talked about it before, but I just want to make sure people remember, or if this is their first time tuning in, that we let them know what ableism is. And so ableism is just it's a form of discrimination, basically, against people who have differing abilities, in favor of people who are able-bodied, I'd say. And so people who don't require accessibility or accommodations and things like that, it's basically saying people who are able-bodied or seem normal or average are in a better position, and kind of the society favors them, and accommodations or just the built environment is in favor of people who you don't have to think differently or out the box to make sure that the venue is accessible or anything's accessed for them. It can be accessed for them. So it's just a form of discrimination against people who may have disabilities. Right.
And I think a lot of people don't consider themselves being, just discriminating against people anyway. But I think even in this, they are so obsessed with themselves, they don't take into account, that they are, discriminating against somebody. For example, I'll give the good example, and I think we've talked about this. You and I have talked about this several times. When you told me about going to the doctor's office, never have I thought about the bed should lower, go up and down lower so people can get on. Never have I even thought about it. Would you consider that somebody who discriminated against? Would you consider me, who never thought about that prior to you bringing it up? And I was like, you know what? You're right. What would you define that? A person like that?
A person like that? I mean, I guess it's not, I wouldn't just say, oh, you're discriminating because you didn't think about it, or you weren't aware. But I definitely would say the doctor's offices themselves, particularly if they've had patients who have had to come to these offices or to their clinics and have had difficulty getting on the table. And also I just think I put more responsibility on the business person or the doctors, because if you think about who your audience is, who your clientele is, who your patients are, you have to think a little bit broader than just who you see every day and who you might be missing. And so it's a whole group of people who might not be coming in because what are you missing at your clinic? What is the problem? Like, why isn't, there are women and men who have disabilities. Are they coming to you? And so I would consider that a place where they might have to look to fill some holes. Again, like I'm not just thinking like people just, purposely being discriminatory or having prejudices and things like that. But I think you do have to kind of think back like, because one thing someone told me that I thought was very interesting as far as like when they're thinking about who can come to their business, and the people are like, when you talk about accommodations and accessibility, people want to say, they want to put up barriers or get all defensive about different things that can't be done, or, this may not be, what we're trying to do here. And so it's like, they said, instead of just talking about like, this is what you're doing wrong, or this is what, you're missing here, flip it and ask them what, why wouldn't you want a person in a wheelchair to come to your business?
Right.
Put them there, and that kind of puts people on pause, because it's like, oh, I didn't say that, I didn't say I don't want people in a wheelchair to come here. You didn't say it, but what are you doing to help them be able to come here?
Right.
What accommodations are made for them, or what are you doing to make the playing field equal so that they can come here too? Right. So yeah, so I think when we put people like kind of like, oh, so who are you serving here? Oh, we serve women. This is we do women's health. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So I'm a woman. So if I roll in there, what you gonna do for me? Mm-hmm. Oh no, we don't have the table for you, or we can't help you. Oh, so you don't. You is there a reason why you don't want to serve a woman in a wheelchair? Right. Or a woman with a prosthetic leg? Right. Or someone who is hearing impaired? Right. Or visually impaired, that kind of thing. So people, that's kind of like, whoa, I didn't say, that, right. Like I said, that definitely makes people think. And I think when I heard that, that really helped me shift, because people get real defensive when you talk about the gaps, and they start to talk about money and all the, resources that's going to take to right. make something happen. But we start to think about like, oh, who you aren't serving, who's missing at the table, and how that is unfair and unjust. Right. Particularly for the healthcare, that definitely makes them think about it differently.
And if you think about, because you made a good point. So a lot of people, when you think about you need to make accommodations, they do think, a lot of businesses do think, well, that costs a lot of money. But on the flip side, look at all the more business you will bring in by making that accommodation. It's a small price now on the front end, but to be able to open up your clientele to be able to receive more people. So financially, I think a lot of people think the cost now. They don't think the benefit, because they're going to get more customers, more clients, more money just by making those accommodations.
Definitely. And I also think there are untapped resources around. Like I know someone who is an acupuncturist who actually got a veterans grant, a grant through the veterans something through the VA, Veterans Affairs probably, to get an adjustable table. And she didn't have to pay anything or very little. And so there are untapped resources, especially for like smaller clinics or practices and things like that. So I think before people just put up the defense and try to, think about all the barriers, can do a little bit more digging, and also expand the view of what disabilities look like, or who they think might benefit from these resources or these accommodations. Because I would argue, particularly since you brought up the scenario around the gynecologist or just the doctor's table, the examination table, I would argue that it's way more than it would be beneficial to way more than just people who use wheelchairs. Absolutely. To be able to use that. I mean, I think I've talked about this before. Like, I know pregnant women may not necessarily want to get, have to, wobble and hobble onto a little table, a higher table. There are little people who don't use wheelchairs that, I've always tried to figure out how they have to, get on the table, that sort of thing. Old elderly people. And then I think I mentioned before too, like just people who, my granddad has vertigo. And so like a lot of people suffer from vertigo. If you come into the doctor's office and you're dizzy that day, why are you getting on a table that's higher? That just doesn't even make sense. I think and I've also read about like things that have gone against people as far as lawsuits and different things, because people have fallen off the table. Mm-hmm. And so it's just different things to do, make things safer. So often, I mean, that's to me an easy example, but oftentimes there's a lot of different examples in society and things we can do to make things a bit more accessible and friendlier just for community as a whole, that it would be beneficial to way more than just people with what we think are visible disabilities or more apparent disabilities.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. what would you suggest that a business owner, small business owner, what is the first thing they should probably look for or do? So they own a small business. What would you, and they want to do better, what would you suggest they do? Look around their business for what exactly?
That's tough. So, I mean, I usually would say start with like just kind of even the ADA guidelines, because the ADA has guidance that they, you know, it's been up for over 30 years now, that you can start as a point place. But those of us who require accommodations, we know that that is just a starting place. There's so much more, and hopefully more progress will be made to do even more around that. But I would say just start with that, if nothing else. Then also just, I've actually heard of people or businesses hiring people, like working with people with disabilities and asking them to come in and see like what it is they need, or just kind of thinking about it differently. I mean, if you've ever had a broken leg, like what did you need then? Like, you know, when you and in that case, you were temporarily disabled. So that's me, you know, thinking about it a little differently, broadening the view of what disability looks like. Disability, that's a limitation that may severely impair or change how you do things. And if you have a broken leg, that's going to change. That is going to limit you and change your life for that period.
Right.
I mean, again, another example of just like, I know people don't think about disability, but if you need glasses to see and your glasses break,
right.
If you wake up in the morning and you don't have your glasses or your contacts in, and you can barely get to your only reason you can get to your bathroom is because it's like muscle memory. You just know how many steps it is, but you can't go far anywhere else. You know what it's like to live with some type of limitation, or where you can't access, or things are not where you need it to be for you to be able to get around and do what you need to do. So I think that people just need to kind of just actually try to consciously think, have empathy and think like, what is it that I would need? How would this make sense to me? And then there's tons of YouTube videos and things like that to share with people, and people can look and get ideas. But like I said, if nothing else, just start with like the ADA guidelines, because it's there.
Okay. I remember, because you and I, we talk a lot, and I remember you sharing a story of going into the bathroom and the stall designated for wheelchairs had boxes, had things in it that you couldn't even get in. And it's like, that's basic. That's basic. Never mind that it's just the bathroom. People can't use the bathroom because you have a stall, you're using it for storage. Those are basic things that people can do too, you know, in addition to looking at the ADA. Would you agree with that? What's your comments on that?
Definitely. I mean, we could talk for a whole like 3 hours about the bathroom chronicles, right? Because I've had like so many different experiences of just ADA or accessibility gone wrong, accessibility fails throughout, you know, just going to the public bathroom. So it's a problem. But yeah, it doesn't make sense like to have a label on something. You have the classic, we know what the icon looks like, the blue and white icon for disability. You have that on this bathroom. If you do, or you have, it's definitely designated because it's bigger stall space and whatever. And then you just use it as storage, or you have like a dirty clothes hamper straight in the middle of the stall, not even off to the side where somebody might be able to maneuver around it. It's ridiculous. And so you got to think about that. And it really, I mean, with that, it's just kind of thinking about just backtracking, like, what is this space even for? Like, what is this for? It's a bathroom. So, you know, just making sure it's getting the use that was initially intended. Right. That would be another way too. But
I worked with a lady, and this was several years ago, and the parking lot, the signs in the parking lot, you know, that is the disability parking, and it has the stripes beside it, right, which you're not supposed to park there, because if somebody's using a wheelchair or ramp, there's room for them to get out. She took that slide, the lines, as the loading zone, and she used to be like, I'm in the loading zone, and I was like, look, you're not a truck. I mean, it's not like it's not a loading zone, but people just, and she was serious.
A lot of people think that though. I believe a lot of people think that's the loading.
She was serious, and I just was like, it is not a loading zone. And for people to, I mean, if she was you know, an older lady, because she was well older than me, just ingrained, I guess, over the years, she just, and who knows who she taught that to. that she taught, you know, that all these people now think it's a loading zone when it's like just oblivious. I mean, education, I think, needs to be people like you. That's why you be out the box is important, because people need to be educated. Because I don't, that wasn't her intent to be cruel or to be ignorant, but she threw out her whole, you know, the loading zone. And it was like, this is not, you know, you're not delivering packages. You know, it's not a loading zone, but even call it that, because people think a loading zone, you know, that you're delivering or moving things in. Now, she was parked, I mean, for the day, for the entire day. And I just think that, you know, again, blogs like Be Out the Box, it educates people who don't necessarily have bad intentions, but just oblivious to other people's situation. And I think that was her case all the time.
Definitely. Yeah, and like, I mean, most people are not going around, are not going around intentionally trying to hurt people or use public bathrooms. I mean, because, you know, like we talked about people using the public bathroom as a storage space.
Right.
We'll also talk about people using public bathrooms that may not need the handicap stall that may not need the handicap stall. So then when somebody who comes that does need it, you know, they have to try to hold it and wait. But then that's another form of ableism, and just kind of just with the mindset of thinking that all disabilities are visible. Right. So like if I go to a stall, yes, when I'm in public, I'm using a wheelchair. So it's like, I'm going to need the bigger stall. Right. But then somebody else might go into the stall and you like, you know, they walk in and they walk out and you're like, oh, what's wrong with you? You don't need the stall. Right. Nope. That's not even for us to say. That's where you need to stop. You can't make judgments. We don't know invisible, visible disabilities. We don't know if a person has balance things going on. We don't know anything. And so that's I guess the hard part for people, because people, especially people who are really bold and they're ready to call people out, like, you know, don't park here. You don't have a you're not handicapped, because, you know, a lot of people have handicap stickers, and you're like, you know, they might walk in and out, and you're like, what's going on with you? You don't need this park here. Nope, we can't do all of that. That's like a step farther than where we have to go. We just have to just take it at face value and just do our part to be fair and to be inclusive.
So speaking of that, so that you brought up a good point. You know, a lot of times you will see, you know, handicap stickers and people get out the car and, you know, they look fine as wine. You know, they look fine as wine, and you know, you'd be like, why are they parked here? But you never know, and I say that all the time, what people have going on. You know, and who am I? You know, the parking lot attendant. You know, I'm going in the store too. I'm not fixing to direct traffic and be like, hey, what do you know? And I think a lot, and some people do that. You know, some people will try to call you out, which nowadays is dangerous.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what people got going on. And, you know, I leave people alone. Right. You know, I leave people alone because you don't know what people got going on. You don't call out somebody or something that you don't know. And who are you to ask them? I think you said that before too, that you've had somebody come up to you and be like, oh, what happened? It's like, do I know you?
Yeah, people do. And yeah, people definitely believe that they have a right to understand and know what your struggle is, or your journey is, or how did you get in this chair? How did you, you know, what, oh my God, what happened to you? What do you mean? You've never met me before in your life. Like, it's just way too much for me sometimes, but I'm trying to kind of become numb to that, because people, I mean, it's ignorance basically. I mean, what it boils down to. And not that I have to like enjoy or applaud the ignorance, but I acknowledge that it is there. And so I can use it as a teaching moment, or if I'm in my feelings that day, I can just ignore them. Like, okay, you're gonna say that, I'm gonna just roll that way and not even deal with it. Because I mean, I have a right to my feelings, and I mean, every day I'm not gonna be on like, oh, let me educate you, let me tell you why that's not okay. I mean, I'm human too. I'm not gonna be like that every day, but yeah, people definitely feel like they have a right to understand everybody's story. But when it's time to ask them about theirs, they may not be so willing to open up. That's the problem. So
I think you should not expect somebody to be on show all the time, right? You know, your game face. And I'm with you. I believe in teachable moments, but sometimes I don't have the strength, the time, or or to even care to teach you. Just sometimes they'd be like, just stay ignorant, and I keep going. But you know, I do believe in teachable moments. You know, I have a birth scar on my nose, so I wear makeup to cover it. And before I used to, I was grown in my 30s before I even started wearing makeup. So you know, adulthood, and people would be like, oh, what happened? And I remember one lady was like, you got something on your nose, and it was my scar. So I go flying to the bathroom thinking, and I'm looking in the mirror, I was like, it's my everyday face. It is my everyday. There's nothing on here. And she did it to me like 2 different times, and both times I fell for it. But you know, it's the whole thing. You don't have to explain. I should not have to every time I go out explain, you know, why I have on makeup, or which I wear makeup all the time now. But if I didn't, what happened? If I want you to know, I'll say gather around, you know, or let me get to the speaker so I can make an announcement. And I think people don't. People expect, if they ask you the question, and I'm saying all that to say, they ask you the question like, hey, what happened? That it's rude. You'll be rude if you be like, you're a stranger, I don't know you. They'll take that as being rude.
Yeah, I was on, you just had, what you said, I had like complete competing thoughts around what you just said. So I'm trying to figure out which one I want to take out first. But yeah, I was on a call recently, and somebody disclosed that they were blind. And, you know, they had lost their sight as an adult. And so it was kind of, I don't say, it was a fairly new-ish development. And so they were, you know, had to navigate the workforce differently and all that sort of thing. And somebody on the call was like, can I ask you what level of sight you have now? And I was like, well, why though? First of all, I'm like, oh my God. I felt, he already decided that he wanted to disclose this.
Right.
Why are you asking questions?
Right.
I felt like that was inappropriate. Not to mention, what are you about to do with this information?
Right.
That's the other thing I really think people should, before they start asking questions, like, are you a healer of some kind? Like, do you think, and even then, like, you can't just assume that he wants healing or that he needs it. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you going to do with this? And so you need to back up. And then you're on a call full of people though, too. Right. It's not even a one-on-one conversation, and you don't know him like that. This is our first time meeting him. Right. This is our first time meeting this person. It's a call full of people. You put him on the spot. He answered it, and I don't know if it was out of shock, out of that's maybe he's okay with it, or because that's the thing too. The people come up to you sometimes and they catch you off guard, so you end up explaining yourself, and then later on you're mad. You're like, what? I can't believe they asked me that. Like, why are they even talking to me? You know, about this. And so, just it's that kind of stuff happens. And again, I think, you know, with social media and YouTube and all these different things, I think people are becoming more conscious of certain things and more sensitive to some things and not others. Right. But I think for some reason at this point, and maybe I feel like it's also kind of like a effect of social media, people feel like they have a right to just insert themselves and start asking questions. Right. And no, you don't ask anybody that. Right. Especially on a call full of people. Right.
Because it's what difference does it make? Is really the question. And I'm with you. What are you going to do with telling you answering this does what? Are you healing me? I'm not trying to be, you know, I'm with you. And you are a stranger. I don't know you. You can try to hack my information and you can use that as one of this is what I know about her. I mean,
right. Yeah.
And would you consider that? So I'm saying this to say, would you consider that ableism? Somebody who comes up and entitled, oh, what happened? What happened? What is that ableism?
That is ableism. And actually, when I've done some research or I've read a bit about ableism, that is one of the examples that they give is people asking like, what happened to you? And, they want to find out more. They think they have a right to know and that sort of thing. That is an example of just kind of just inserting yourself and feeling like, oh, I'm normal. You're not. How did you not, how did you get this way? So yeah, that's definitely an example of ableism.
And so let me ask you this. The person would say, I'm just being nice. I'm just being nice. I just care. I'm concerned. That's why I'm asking. You don't have to be rude. So that is them being defensive, not learning boundaries, but still ableism, correct?
Right. Yeah, it's still ableism. I mean, we often, like, when you think about being unjust sometimes, or discriminating, or prejudices and different things that we do, a lot of them are subconscious, a lot of them are not intentional, but when someone tells you that it's wrong, or that they don't like it or appreciate it, we need to take a step back and listen, you know? And then I just think it's, you know, you have to learn from it and not always be defensive. That's it. And I think in the same conversation that I'm talking about, we talked about, it was receptivity. So, you know, you go back and forth about intent, like what your intention is, also versus how it's received. Right. So I intended to be nice, but I received it as you being rude and invasive. Right. And so just take it and go with yourself, you know? And so it's like, I guess it depends on like the person's response, like the level of like how offended the person was. You know what I mean? In this case, this example, the person answered, he seemed to be okay, whatever. I was on the call though, like, how dare you? But I didn't want to make it even more of a thing. So, and it wasn't my question. You know, she asked me. So I'm like, let me stop, you know. But, you know, I feel like also like one thing with the person who's being asked, whether it's a person with a disability or any other facet of life or any other area of life, is kind of like scaling your response to the situation so that a person may be able to take it and learn from it. And, you know, kind of take that information as they communicate with you in the future or with others. Because I think sometimes people have been burned and so they don't know how to respond because either the person took it to a whole nother level or they, you know, didn't respond at all. You know, as one thing, me and one of my friends talk about all the time is she's like not knowing whether to open the door for people or not, like people who have wheelchairs and canes, because sometimes people are like, I don't need you to open the door for me and, you know, And so, you know, I told her she's really, you know, that's her thing. She likes to do that. That's one, you know, she's from the South. She's like, oh, that, you know, he'd be chivalrous, you know, that kind of thing. So I'm like, don't let people change you. If that's who you are, you know, you intended to do it nicely, but for a nice reason, not because you're like, oh my God, I have to save you. I mean, first of all, I need everybody to pipe down. It's just the door. I mean, my God, like the person opened the door for you, calm down. For me, even before, you know, using the wheelchair or walking aids and stuff, I thought it was rude when people let the door shut in my face. So, I mean, I don't wheelchair now with the wheelchair. Thank God, thank you for opening the door, because I have not quite figured out how to maneuver the roll and pull yet. I mean, it's hard for me to pull the door and roll. I mean, sometimes I get it right, but I'm not really that skilled on that yet. So if somebody's in front of me or behind me and they come and open the door, I'm thankful. Whereas somebody else might not receive that. But I would say for the person who usually opens doors, don't let that stop you from opening doors for people. Because I mean, I can't judge the person who doesn't want people to open the door for them. I don't know what their story is and why, you know, all of that. But the majority of people probably wouldn't mind that. But if they do, just, you know, if somebody just say, don't open the door for me, don't open the door for them. Move on.
I had that happen when I worked at another place, this other place. And the guy, he uses a wheelchair, and I was way ahead. And I held the door and I waited. I knew it was probably a 1 minute wait. It was at least probably 1 minute. He was like, go ahead. And I was like, okay. And left. Because that's what he said. I could have been like, no, I'm gonna wait a minute, you know, and wait, you know, till you get down here. And he was like, no, go ahead. And I was walking with his supervisor. So, and she said, good job. She said, I was new there at that place. Like, good job, because most people would have just still been standing there open the door. But he was like, go ahead.
Now that, exactly. Because then that's the example of you listen to what he said. And and I've been on this side of that too, because as a wheelchair user, I don't want to feel like I'm holding people up, or I don't want to feel the pressure. Let me hurry up and roll. This person is waiting. You know, it's a whole, like, I mean, it's like some of the like minor details that people don't even, but you're processing it, you know, you are like trying to figure it out. And so it's like, kind of just like, go ahead, I'll figure it out when I get up there. I don't want you just to stand there. And in your mind, it may have, you know, not been a big deal or whatever, but he said, go, so go. But it is a lot of people who just want to, I would want somebody to wait for me. So I'm going to wait for you. It's okay. I'm going to wait. Cause I've seen that too. Like people, I'm going to wait here. I'm going to wait. It's like, I wish you wouldn't just leave me alone. But it's just, it's just the same. I mean, I think the kind of the one of the big things I'm seeing as we were having this conversation is people with disabilities, we're all just people. Like, we're all dealing with the same thing. It's just maybe a different category of different subject. It's just trying to deal with whether or not people, try to insert themselves and enforce their thoughts or their needs or whatever they think they're supposed to do on you, which we see that in other areas, not even just disability. I'm trying to think of a good example, but I know that it's in other ways. We see like people are just like, you need to do this. I want to help you. So yeah, it's just we're all people. Everybody just trying to navigate their lives,
Yes, I know if somebody is holding the door for me, and I'm rushing too, because it's like they're holding the door, so now I feel obligated to hurry, and I've had people say, that's take your time, and it's like, well, you're holding the door, so now you feel it's a rush of let me hurry, but it's it's the same thing, because you can either be like, especially if you got your hands full, you can say, no, go ahead, I'll figure out when I get here, and you're praying hopefully somebody else will come, because to help with the door. But it is the rush. I'm with you. If somebody's holding the door and you're kind of back, you feel the let me hurry up, because they're being kind and holding the door for me. And it's just, if more people were kind, we wouldn't have feel that way in the first place.
Yeah. Or if we felt like people weren't, I don't know, like keeping track. Like if it was more like, we always feel like, okay, I don't know, it's almost like a subconscious, like, oh, I wasn't right behind her and she held the door, but she had to hold the door for 2 minutes. So this is going to be something I owe her now. It's like kind of keeping track of like who owed who and who, how much. And I don't know, it's a weird unspoken thing that happens. That's exchanged between people when people do something nice or just that makes sense. Like, I just don't understand the whole idea of like closing the door on somebody's face, in somebody's face.
It's rude. It is rude.
It is rude.
No,
it happens every day, all day, wheelchair or not. So
that's right. It is rude. So let me ask you this: when you go out, is it do you feel burdened by when somebody asks you a question? Like if they say what happened, do you feel the burden of educating them, or the burden of, here we go, when I go out, I always say to myself, I hope I don't see anybody I know. Because on the weekends, I'm not usually dressed up to par. I'm running in and out the store. So I don't really like to hold conversation. I mean, if I see somebody, if they see me, that's the better word. Because if I see them, they may not see me. But if we see each other, they see me, I see them, I will hold a conversation, not like I'll be rude. But there are times where it's like, I'm coming to get bread and, and I'm trying to get out the door. I don't, do you feel like it's a burden to knowing somebody might come up? Is that a hindrance for you to not want to go to the store for feel that somebody's gonna say that? Like if I go without makeup, I know somebody's gonna say that to me or give me the look. So when I go with makeup, then hopefully nobody's paying me any attention. But do you feel that way? And is that well, we already established that is ableism. But
yeah. I do. I think I've been feeling it a little less lately though, or one, because I probably go out the house less. But when I do leave, I don't know. I think it's tough because I don't really know anyone in the area where I live right now.
Right.
So if it's people approaching me, it's usually strangers. Mm-hmm. And so we already know how I feel about that anyway, because you're a stranger. Right. So why, is this even a thing? Right. But I have been out like closer to like the city, at downtown Atlanta, and I have people all of a sudden say Brandy, and I'm like, what you talking about? Who is this? Who knows me out here? But in any case, yeah, it is a little pressure around it, just because you don't know what people are going to say, what they're going to ask, or whatever. But that's part of, I guess, me just getting comfortable in my skin and staying comfortable in my skin and my truth and what's happening. This is my life. This is what it is. It is the difference now. Like what we haven't talked about a little bit today is like a difference of when it's somebody who you've known from before, and then they ask what happened. I mean, it's still kind of like, I don't have to tell you, because if you were in my life in that way where you need to know, you would have known.
Right.
However, it makes a little bit more sense, because like, man, I know it's been a couple years, but I saw you and you were doing Zumba. Now, you know, you're doing Zumba still, but from a chair, you know, that kind of thing. So it is a little bit of kind of like, oh, but it like I said, I think for me, it's just more of me like realizing this is my journey. This is what's happening right now. And this is what's happening. Let me tell you, you know, what's going on. And like I said, but it's a little bit harder with strangers sometimes, because I'm never going to see you again in life. So I don't even have to spend my time telling you.
Right.
But like we said, I mean, teachable moments, depending on what they ask and how they can do it, that might change something for them or shift how they look at something. And they'll stop using the handicap or the accessible parking spot as a loading zone now, you know, because I've talked or I've shared this with you.
Right. And I agree with that. It is it's almost defined as, you know, how they'll talk about basketball players are people's heroes, and they need to, you know, make sure they set the standards. And sometimes basketball players will be like, I didn't ask for that though. I didn't ask to be your hero. And for you, it's like, you didn't ask to be the teacher in all these moments, you know, and every time you step up and say, you know, I'm going to teach this person this time, you know, that's kudos for you, but that's something that could be a burden too, because you didn't ask for that, you know. So that is a good journey, you know. That's a journey for you. I like how you put that you consider that's your journey to when you feel like it, you'll let them know, and when you don't, you're stranger danger. And I'm not here to teach. I'm here to get my stuff and go.
Yeah, it's the same thing you know, a lot of people talked about with last year with the you know, racial injustice and the height and all of that. And a lot of workplace, you know, the conversations around race and inclusiveness and diversity and equity and all that. And depending on the makeup of the work environment, like where I work, you know, it's my actual department is pretty diverse, but the company overall, you know, it's a nice amount of white people, right? in comparison to other races.
Right.
And so people do ask questions. And with that, a lot of people like, you know, now is the conversation's hot. So, well, let me understand, how do you feel about this? Let me know. And, you know, me and some of my friends who work at similar companies who, you know, where they you know, might have been in a minority, you know, they have people who ask them questions, and a lot of them like, this is not my time to teach them. They need to read a book, you know? And in my mind, I mean, if you don't feel like teaching, this is a time to teach. Now, whether or not you feel equipped to do it, you want to do it, you have the energy to do it, that's different. But if people, I mean, I feel like, I mean, that's the fine line, because it's something a little different though about the race talk that we were having last year versus an individual. What is your experience and why do you feel this way? Because a person can feel attacked, they can feel, you know, that's a little different than trying to get. Now, if somebody came and asked me like, what can we do to make this building or this restaurant better for people with disabilities? That's a little different than, why are you in this chair? What happened to you?
Right, that's right.
But again, like I said, a person has to be, they have to be able to be the teacher no matter what.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's the thing. But I see that in a lot of areas though, where, I mean, because we can always learn something at any time, really, depending on if we allow ourselves and depending on what people say.
That's exactly. So you created Be Out the Box to help educate people, and it's mainly just a voice for you. Is it always your story, or is it other people's story?
Yes, right now it's been my story, and it's my story, but also inspired by things I've heard and seen, experiences I've had directly. But I spend a lot of time reading, and I go to support groups with people with disabilities and that sort of thing. So it's also kind of informed by things that I've heard people talk about. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then, one thing I wanted to bring up too is that you said in the very beginning, my word is opportunity. And so I wanted to explain a little bit about that and why opportunity is my word, how I got to that. And so I picked opportunity as my word because, you know, what's his name? Evan was Built to Serve book, Evan Carmichael. And he talks about like your pain points and things like that, you know, what caused you pain, and then you pick a word, and then that's the kind of word that you want to use to the area you want to serve people in. And so I thought about just way back, even as a teenager, I'm just always kind of like, it hits me when people don't give you a chance, or you don't have opportunities to do different things within the workplace or in the schoolyard, whatever. Like I said, it started young, but like, you know, and then now with having a disability, and sometimes I don't have opportunities to get in this venue, or things are not accessible. So I feel like opportunities close, or they're narrower, the windows are different. And so my idea, or my word, is opportunity, because I want to help enhance and give people opportunities and make things accessible so they will have the opportunity to do different things. And so, yeah, with that, that's why I chose opportunity as my word, because I think accessibility, it allows people to have different opportunities. Education, it changes opportunities people might have access to. And yeah, that's it.
I love it. I'm so glad you explained that. How can we get more information from Brandy with Be Out the Box?
Be Out the Box. So my website or blog is www.be-outthebox.com. And then I am on Instagram at be.outthebox. So you can find me on IG as well and send a message through that.
And before we go, what is one last thing that you want people to know about ableism? What that they need to be conscious of, or just what is one thing that you would want to leave people with?
One thing to leave people with around ableism. I think, I mean, the term ableism is new. So I think people are like, oh, I never heard that before. You know, I have, you know, so I can't, you know, I think I feel like it's a newer term that has been actually, I don't actually think it's new, because when I looked it up, I don't think it's a new term. I think it's just been talked about a lot lately, a lot more. And so it's in the forefront, just like a lot of things. It's not a new idea. It's just now more in your face.
Right.
And so I think now that people are hearing it, hopefully they are becoming more aware and educating themselves around it. And I think too, people just assume it starts and stops with the whole thing of, if you see somebody that has a visible disability, you shut them down, and that, you know, that means that you're ableist, or you are invoking ableism. No, it's so much more than that. I think that we need to really examine our mindsets and think about what we're thinking about when we see people, or we're around people who have invisible disabilities. Like, we didn't talk at all about mental health, depression, autism, and things like that. Or, you know, and even talking about people being blind or having visual impairments. Everybody doesn't walk around with glasses like Stevie Wonder. Right. Okay, it's the truth. And you know, I've encountered a lot of people lately who are blind or have visual impairments that I wouldn't think they were blind because they didn't look blind. You know, that kind of. Right. So I think it's just, I think with that, if you kind of sit back and examine some of our thoughts around and our assumptions around able-bodied and what that looks like, and healthy and well, and what we think that should be, then I think we would notice that there's a lot more disabilities or disabled people than probably abled people. And so just starting with that and knowing, like, just to kind of adjust our assumptions and our thinking around people and their behaviors and their accommodations and the ways that they are able to do things.
Thank you, Brandy. Y'all heard it here. We did a take 2, a deeper dive into ableism with Brandy from Be Out the Box. We're not done talking. Brandy and I got a lot more videos that we're going to be doing. So guess what? We'll see y'all at the next video. Hey, before you leave, I need you to subscribe. Subscribe.